the review of we're going to review the agenda quickly. Cara, is that you coming in? I see another. Is that her or is that?
Oh,
it's
are you
Debbie.
looking for?
Okay, that's Debbie. Okay, I see it. No, it's so what we're gonna do is maybe switch the agenda a little bit if you guys are okay with that, so that give time to Cara to come in, and instead of starting on the I'm looking at Sandra too. Sandra and I are gonna facilitate today because Sue needs to be at this other meeting. So we were should we move the task force for later or start at the task force, Sandra?
I can report on the task force, but I think it's starting with the legislative update.
The what? Yeah. So we're gonna move the legislative update all the way to the end. And is everybody okay with that? Okay. So I'm not gonna do a motion today because it's just because of time. And we're not adding anything to the agenda. So let's move into the report of the task force on collaboration to benefit all students. Sandra?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to give you a quick update. The last meeting of the task force on collaboration to benefit all students was last week, April 3rd. The minutes were in your packet. They're quite lengthy. And as a result, we have a couple of projects underway. So yesterday, we issued a survey to all board chairs and superintendents asking for some feedback that the task force helped to create, a survey that was created within the task force issued yesterday. We're going to do a reminder next week around the 16th. We'll close it around the 23rd. We're hoping that feedback will perhaps help us develop then a tool to move forward with getting feedback from other associations. So the Vermont Principals Association, superintendents, VSBA, et cetera. So we'll review that information at the May meeting, which I believe is the 6th is the next meeting. And then the other project that's underway is we have tentatively 3 dates held for stakeholder listening sessions. And this was a recommendation by one of the task force members to hear from other leaders, specifically superintendents and school board members within regions, but really wanting to do that 3 times rather than 11 because the VSBA has 11 regions. So we have 3 dates held for 3 sessions on May 1st, 8th, and 15th. And the regions are really coordinated, quite honestly, based on the fact that on the 8th, we also have a VSBA board meeting, and some VSBA board members are also task force members. So we tried to organize so that everyone would be able to attend the meetings that they would like to do. A couple of things around these listening sessions, we will ask the task force members to be the moderators. I will attend, take notes, and just kind of help the process along. Claire may also. Claire is the chair of the task force. And of course, the 8th would be a board meeting for myself as well. And then we are also carefully watching the confirmation and the schedule for the appointed Secretary of Education, because it sounds like there may be a listening tour, and many of the task force members would like to be present or invite the secretary to some of these listening sessions as that's all rolling out. So we'll be watching that timeline really closely. Happy to answer any questions on the task force.
Any questions from board members? I don't see any hands up. So
this is Martine. I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Martine.
I hadn't heard anything about a listening tour. Is that a listening tour that the Secretary of Ed would do?
That yes, we had some information that if the Secretary of Education confirmation goes through, there may be a listening tour around the state. And so we're just kind of watching to see if that all happens, to see if we might be able to align some of our work with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. So
my understanding is that even if she's not confirmed, she's going to be still serving.
I think that remains to be seen, but that it could possibly.
Thanks, Michael. We do not have an answer for that question, and it's not on the agenda, so I'm gonna move to you can discuss that at the end, but third quarter treasurer report, Jim, if you don't mind.
Sure. Okay. Things are in pretty good shape. Happy to take questions on the details of you've got the balance sheet, income statement. We're pretty well in line. Doing well this year. We're headed towards an expectation of another surplus for this year. We've had some extraordinary years. The finance committee is already working on the budget for next year, where we'd essentially roll the surplus into next year's budget is the intent right now, so that provide essentially any surplus would go to help improve the situation for next year and to control potential increases in dues. The finance committee also met. You'll see one of the highest percentage variance items in there is we've started investing our funds in a group of indexes, and that's now starting to pay off, where we're actually generating some decent income from that. The finance committee met, and one of the things that was decided, we've been just feeding money into our total restricted reserve fund is $425,000. We had put in September and December, we had put in $100,000 each time, and we decided also in March to put in an additional $100,000. We're just sort of working our way into getting fully invested there. So that decision was taken. We're associated with that whole the approach to investment funds. We recognize that we really need to better define how not just our investment funds are handled, but how that fits in with all of our other operating funds, etc. So we're going to have at the next meeting, we've got something we'll be proposing just to explain how that all works, how the funds all fit together. We're also hoping to be in a position to get a good jump start and present the draft budget to the board at, I believe, the May meeting. So that's basically the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Jim, as always. Any questions for Jim? I don't see any questions. The report was really clear, Jim, so really appreciate the line by line. So now let's move into the Finance Committee report.
Actually, that was kind of the two
That's
of them
true.
combined.
Both.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
I'm trying to be quick. I'm trying to be quick. Keep us
Yeah, I
on
know. I
pace
told you
here.
to be quick, and we are doing really well. Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate it. So if I don't see anybody with hands up, so let's move into communications with the regions. For now, Sandra, and our pretty exciting survey. Go ahead.
Sure. So as part of our commitment to equity, the VSBA has been working on developing a member demographic survey. And we have had lots of feedback from various folks who are also engaged in this work. Carrie, are you able to share your screen? I have it up. If you can't, you would just need to make me a host. So Carrie's been helping.
I can make you a host. Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Carrie's been helping turn the survey questions into a SurveyMonkey tool. And what we wanted to share with you tonight is the intro, and then talk about this being an opportunity for regional reps to communicate. So let me see if I can share. Hold on one second. Too many things open. Okay, here we go. All right, let me make this a little bigger. Okay, so I'm showing it there, but I'll also read it. So this introduction says, getting to know our members. The VSBA wants to understand the composition of our diverse membership. Your insights matter to us, and we warmly invite you to participate in this voluntary survey as a Vermont School Board member in service to public education and our students. Understanding the makeup of our membership is important to us, and it advances our mission to develop and provide systems and resources that support school boards and their members, informed through inclusive community engagement. Completion of the survey takes no more than 10 minutes, and all the information shared will be kept in strict confidence. So the questions are around the person's name, the board name, they'll select their region, the VSBA region. Why did you decide to be a school board member? We would just want to understand what attracts people to this work, how long the person has been a school board member, whether they have a child, a grandchild who's attended schools or CTE programs. And of course, in all of these, you can skip it and prefer not to answer. Age range, person with a disability, and if yes, any accommodations that might be helpful. Description, which best describes you, and we use the same characteristic descriptions as the US Census. So those align, those should be familiar to people. Identity as a woman, man, non-binary, preferring not to answer, or there is an option for other. Identifying as LGBTQ or preferring not to answer, level of schooling, and do you speak a language other than English, and if so, which one? So as you can see, it should be fairly quick. We're hoping that it gives us, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see my notes. We're hoping it gives us a little bit of information that can help us reach groups that perhaps want information provided in a different way or want to be engaged in a different way. I can give you a really good example of that. We had a board member at the conference talk at quite some length with Carrie about really wanting the VSBA to use more video and less text. And so that's really important for us to know from our membership, right? That that's a desire of a particular group within our membership. So we might also want to know if there's particular needs within a region. So that's part of the why we're collecting this really important information. And Sue and I did some research with other state board associations and collected some examples as we were putting this together. So we were hoping that regional reps would help us issue the survey and promote it. And we've drafted an email to get that out. So Carrie can share that and help keep track of submissions. We would probably keep it out for several weeks with some reminders along the way. And of course, we know we likely won't get to 100%, but it's our way to start. And then moving forward, we hope to fold this into part of our onboarding for new board members. So I'm happy to answer any questions on this.
Suzanne?
So one question is on the places where you have that they can like leave comments, like why did they run for the board and things. Do you have a set character limit? Because I mean, I presuming that some people could go on for days as to why they ran and others might just give you one sentence. So
That's a good question.
just a question.
Do you remember, Carrie, on that question? Is there a character limit?
I think there's a 200 character limit.
Tara?
Sandra, I just heard you share some talking points. I was hoping that you could maybe put them in an email. I know Carrie's putting together an email that we can send as regional reps, but if we had
Right.
additional talking points for when people email us back to say, why are you looking for feedback? Or what about this? Or what about that? That would be really helpful for me to
Perfect.
have on hand.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Barbara.
Yes, just one question. Will you tell us like how many people, I mean, we'll send it out assumably to all the school boards within our region. Do we want to send a follow-up if we're not getting good? I mean, is there going to be any more back and forth on trying to get more answers if we're not getting any responses or anything like that?
Yes, Carrie and I will develop a strategy on that. We do that with our superintendent evaluation. We monitor the response rate and we do reminders based on that. So that'll be part of our plan.
Yeah, and one last thing that I would say, ideally, the hope is that, every year, if we do this every year, it will also help us track change in our communities and understand better our communities. And like Sandra was saying, we can serve better our members and focus our learning together. But it would be a powerful tool for all of us. So pretty excited about this. So thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Carrie.
Right, and
for-
as we get new board members, we have an email that we send them and information we send them, and this will be going forward. This will be something that new board members receive as well.
Great. Thank you.
And then Kara also wanted to give an update about the April regional rep communication.
Right? Yeah. I don't have the language in front of me. Sorry, I've been on yield bill meetings all day. But the idea of the resolutions, the email that Carrie will send to all of you, the language in the email is that, we were just looking for ways to strengthen the resolutions process and thinking about ways that boards can collaborate regionally. So the idea is that you would send out this email communication that I've drafted, and it would just encourage boards in your region to share with you some of their thoughts on resolution topics or the resolution itself. And then you could bring that to your board and decide if your board would want to sign on, kind of co-sponsor that resolution. So that is the reason behind that suggested regional communication.
And the thought is that the resolution would have more behind it if there are more than one board that was bringing it to the VSBA board.
Thank you, Karen. Carrie, Melanie, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, could we, would you be able to put a link to the current resolutions in that email? I know I've looked for them before on the VSBA site and I seem to have trouble finding them. So it might be helpful just for regional board members to even look at what our old resolutions are. And especially since, offering amendments is always an option.
Right. So Melanie, just so that you know, on the About Us, the last, it says 2024 resolutions. It's it's a drop down from there, as well as we have a resolutions toolkit that walks you right through the whole process. And it's listed, I think, like 3 times in that, so that if you're looking for it again, that's where you can look. Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and Melanie, I'm just pulling up the language now, and I do have a link to the resolutions toolkit embedded in the email. And then once you land on that page, not only will it give you the submission form, but it will also, and the timeline, it will also give you a link to the current resolutions.
Great. Thank you so much.
But that's a great idea. So thank you for that.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none on that, we're gonna go backwards now and let's do the legislative update. Cara? Yeah, for discussion. Are you
Great.
there?
I'm here. Sorry, I'm just toggling.
No, I was just giving you time to open your document.
Yeah, great. So, okay, the update. I wanted to start with the Secretary of Education and the confirmation timeline as with what we know to date. So Senate Ed has expressed interest in meeting with Zoe Saunders in person, and the earliest possible date for that would be April 15th, which is her start date. And the Senate Education Committee plans to invite her in to answer questions. And we know that on Friday, for about 30 minutes, the Senate Education Committee is bringing in State Board of Ed and 2 other witnesses who were involved in the appointment process. So the best guess is really that they're just being brought in to explain the process that led to the appointment, but we will be watching that closely. And the other piece of information for you is that the chair of the Senate Education Committee, Brian Campion, has been asked to produce a report for the full Senate. in advance of the full Senate voting on Ms. Saunders' confirmation. So that is what we know right now. Oh, and I see that Senator Gulick is on the call with her hand up.
Oh, thank you, Kara. I wasn't sure if you said that the confirmation hearing in Senate Education was going to be the 23rd, because that is the date.
I did not say that. I did not know that. So,
That is the current date that we've got, is the 23rd in the afternoon.
And is that for the full Senate or the Senate Education Committee?
The Senate Education Committee.
Okay.
Yeah, it may not go to the full Senate depending on what our vote is in committee.
Correct. Okay.
Barbara?
Sorry, I can't seem to find my raise hand thing on here, but I'm just curious as to how the process is, all this process of obtaining an approval is after she starts. I don't understand how that works. I mean, it seems backwards. Is this
Yeah,
unusual? Does
unfortunately-
anybody know? I mean, isn't it usually, okay, here are the things, you get approved and then you're sworn in after that? But she's starting right away.
Do you guys mind if I speak a little bit to that?
It's okay,
Sure.
Martine, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I have no idea how it works in other states, but I do know that, Vermont statute is quite silent on all of this. So there's not a lot of information about the run of show and the process. So as it stands, the governor sort of gets to set the timeline. So I mean, that's all I know, and that's all I can tell you, but she will be starting before she has her confirmation hearing.
Thank you, Martine. Kara, you can continue unless there's other questions. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how best to actually handle this. At first, I have, a number of bills and I was just going to provide a brief update, but now the big elephant in the room is the yield bill. And I'm sure what everybody would prefer to spend the bulk of the time on. So I am just going to name for you the bills that are still in play, and then just allow you to ask any questions you have on those bills so that we can reserve the majority of our time for the yield bill. I did provide an update on the bills that have made crossover in the weekly update yesterday. So if you've had a chance to read that, then you're familiar with what I'm about to share with you. So maybe actually I won't share updates with you. I'll just assume that most have read or will go back to read. But we have the BOCES bill, the school construction bill, the PCB pause language, the miscellaneous education bill. So those are all with Senate Education right now. We've got the open meeting law that is in House Government Operations right now. And then we also have a Senate miscellaneous education bill, a literacy bill, and a cell phone bill. And those are in House Education right now. And I don't actually even really have a lot of reports on those. So if anybody has questions, we can talk about that after talking about the yield bill. But actually, I'm seeing Dan, I'm seeing your hand, so.
Dan MacArthur, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so this is quick. It's just a point of clarification, and perhaps Senator Gulick, you might have some feedback as well. School construction bill, I find under section 4(1)(c), Roman numeral V, that they have a prohibition on exclusionary zoning regulations that would preclude lesser resource families from living in the applicable school district. I just wonder what that means, how that would ever be determined. And I don't know, as we go forward, maybe Kara, maybe Senator Gulick, just keep an eye on that. And zoning regulations vary greatly all over the state. So if anybody's got any feedback on that, or just keep an eye on it, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting point. And I believe that's just something that the committee ought to consider. So there's nothing binding the committee to necessarily tether aid to zoning restrictions within communities, but so noted.
Michael?
The cell phone bill has another one of these some more of this model policy language. And it was unclear to me, would the policy be mandatory? One of these, you have to adopt this policy.
So Michael,
Model.
this is very much in flux right now, I think. So House Education took up the bill last week. They brought in, the cell phone advocates brought in Paula Poundstone, who gave very compelling testimony around the dangers of excessive electronic use and social media exposure for kids. Some members of the committee seem right now, without hearing more, like maybe they would be inclined to require such a policy. It was really kind of hard to tell, and they haven't invited additional testimony. So we'll certainly, if the will of all of you is still to advocate for an optional policy, we'll continue to advocate on your behalf for that. I think when I spoke with Laura Dendinger, who's kind of the leading force behind all of this. Sorry, my children are calling me. She does not seem interested in making this a required policy. She wants to tighten up the language so that the model policy that's ultimately developed doesn't give schools the option to adopt a watered down policy. So in other words, that the work product that the AOE would provide everybody would be a model policy banning cell phones all day in school. And then that would be optional, if that makes sense. So that when I last spoke with Laura, that kind of seemed to be where she was moving, but I don't know what the committee is going to say. And if she wants this to be required. So if the committee is open to it, she's going to be opportunistic and move on that.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into length, but I've increasingly concerned about these mandatory policies where you have to adopt the policy. It's really a regulation under that framework. And the ones that we've seen so far, I've not been impressed by, like the wellness policy and the electronic, the sort of, I don't know what to call it, but the inappropriate electronic communications policy. I thought both were very prescriptive and badly written. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. Mark Kaufman?
First, thank you for the weekly updates across the board. They're incredibly helpful, Kara. They're concise and very, very useful for me. Brief comment on the cell phone policy. If there's not an ADA component in it, it will fail and will be subject to immediate lawsuits. And I say that as a blind person because my cell phone is how I read things and how I discern sounds because I'm also hearing impaired. Third, and I'm not sure if this would be legislative or through resolution, I've been talking with several district leaders, not only in my own area, regarding some what could be innovative programs. And as they've done between 30 and 50 hours of regulatory research within the state, they have found what they describe as conflicting regulations within AOE. I don't have more details on that, but I think it's something we should keep an eye on in the future. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for that. Flora, do you mind if I just respond to one piece that you said? So far in the bill, there is an exception or there's a line item to consider the exception for this model policy. I have a child with type 1 diabetes, so I get it. I mean, that's where like I go to, like he's gonna have his phone in school. So that is in the bill. And when I've talked to Laura, she seems to make sure that to acknowledge that in every conversation. So just so you know.
Thank you, Kara. Do you have any?
Okay, so the yield bill is the next big beast. And I'm not sure, Flor, actually, like how you want to handle this. Flor has been participating in most of the calls that I've been on. I'm happy to provide everybody with kind of like a broad overview. If I can find the notes that I've been taking.
I think what is important for everybody to know is that this is in the very early stages, but moving as speed of a train wreck, right? So I'm not saying it could be a train wreck, but it's moving really, really fast. I copy pasted the link to the latest draft on the, and then I'm gonna let Kara really sort of explain big picture, because to be truthful, we are all just trying to get a sense of what exactly it is in order for us to be able to testify and respond appropriately. So right now we're listening, trying to understand so that we can, you know, respond appropriately. I don't know how best to say it. So Kara, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of take this in chunks. So the yield bill, unlike in other years, really gets at kind of short term, which is typical of the yield bill. So there are some like familiar features of the yield bill, like it does set the yield, for example. But then it moves on to later years. And that's where the policy levers start to come into play. So sections 1 through 5 address FY25. It sets the yields. It introduces a cloud tax. It talks about clawing back reserves, which is a representative Beck feature. But by no means is there a consensus on that. And actually the call that Flora and I just got off of, and something we might want to talk about, is that as people read that section, it's section 4 in the bill, and you have strong opinions on it, it might be a section where requiring some advocacy if you have strong feelings about that feature of the bill. And then section 5 is effective dates. Moving on to section 6 through 12, that all deals with FY26. It reinstates the ballot language and then also reintroduces excess spending threshold. So for people who wanted cost containment built into this bill or a bill addressing education funding, that's it. Those are the popular cost containment strategies in this state. Today, when we were on a bunch of calls, lots of concerns about the ballot language. So that is definitely on our radar. Lots of concerns, especially from superintendents, that right now the proposed language would have the effect of encouraging voters to oppose budgets, which we certainly don't want to incentivize that. The section 8 in the bill creates basically like a DQS, District Quality Standards Advisor position at the Agency of Education. Lots of strong feelings about that expressed today in some of the meetings that I was in. Superintendents were really put off by this position. And that's been conveyed to Representative Kornheiser. Section 9 of the bill creates an education fund advisory committee. This is for those of you who closely followed Act 127. This might seem familiar, and it is. And the idea behind it is to build capacity and expertise outside of the State House so that we have expertise even when the experts now on ed funding are voted out of their positions. So we don't want all of the experts to be our elected officials. And right now there is one JFO expert and somebody in tax. So that's the idea behind that committee. And then they flesh out a lot of details in the bill. And then sections 13 through 26 is the whammy. That's FY27 when we change our ed funding formula. And it's hard. I don't want to like kind of categorize this. So I don't know, Flor, if maybe you're the better person to describe this. I don't, or I'm happy to describe it. I mean, it's kind of like a foundation formula.
So I think that the most important thing because I think everybody should read what has been proposed, right? And I think the most important thing for you guys to know is that we are making sure, and we would of course have your input. Tara was with us too, is that we don't want to undo Act 60 and Act 68 or our constitutional belief on Braham too, and this whole thing is taking us back to right after Act 46, getting us back to 2015, 2016, 2018. It's a lot of things that you guys are familiar with, as confusing as I'm making it right now, that it would make our education funding inequitable for all. It doesn't really help. It won't help. It won't help you, Sonia, for example, in Barry. So I don't know, without going, Cara, into too much detail on the bill with the little time that we have that we have today. I'm just gonna pull out one of my notes here that maybe is the best summary on that I was, section 13 on the bill, and it shifted a little bit. It kind of recreates the foundation formula that was struck down by Braham. And just because they call it now the opportunity payments or excess spending doesn't make a different policy. So that is what you guys should have in mind. and the bill is really, it's too much. They're trying to sort of feed us with the fire hose. And I don't even know if I should be saying this at the very last minute. The session is almost done. This is not a good way. They're not creating the conditions that we need for us to operate as board members. And at the same time, the same narrative of us not knowing how to do our job or do the spending is still, floating around. So I want to keep it, professional. To say that we are not overwhelmed wouldn't be fair. We are this is a big deal for us to be doing this after crossover, for them to be doing this to us after crossover. I see a couple of hands, and I also want to end on time to respect everybody's time, and because a lot of us have to jump to another meeting. Who is on my left corner? I have Diane
Flitman.
Oh, Diane. Okay. Diane, go ahead. You were first putting your hand up.
Sure. All I wanted to say, Flor, was thank you for equating that new formula that they're coming up with the old one we had before Act 60, because that was my first reaction to, and I am shocked, dismayed, and I'm trying to pay attention to see what we can do about this. But just thank you for bringing that connection together. That's all.
Thank you, Diane. Barbara, question?
Just have a quick question. Back after Act 60 was passed in Act 68, there were a lot of attempts to undo it and to do things like this and go back to the foundation. And people seemed to listen to, at that time, there was, the lawyer who did the work is no longer with us, but they called him back and they said, will this pass constitutionality? Is anybody asking that question now?
Yeah, we call Alan back, Alan Gilbert, and
Yes.
he's been he's one of the ones that is alive, but so yeah, we are trying to have the experts in the room, and we will give you most information once we have more information. But everybody, if you have questions or want to give some input, please feel free to email us, and we'll be happy to bring those concerns forward. I want to move ahead in our agenda, if that's okay with you guys, so that we're able to end on time. And I'm looking to the consent agenda, and we have March minutes. I'm also trying to rush it. I didn't see other hands up. I am kind of trying to rush it, but I will have 5 minutes before I have to jump into my budget meeting. So any other questions? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to approve our minutes.
I'll make that motion, Floor. It's Gaston.
Hey, Gaston. Second it. Thank you, Tara. You got that, Carrie? Any discussion?
Which Tara was it?
What did you
Tara
say?
Sweet.
Tara Sweet. Sorry.
Tara Sweet, thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you, Dan. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. So the next part of our agenda is new business. So I just wanted to remind everybody that the May 8th board meeting is in person. Sorry, this is wrong here. Well, it's in person. No, the June meeting is.
May is in person.
May is in person too? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the May 8th meeting is in person, and then the June 12th is our retreat, and we're doing it at the Von Trapp Family Lodge. They're giving us a really great price, and we'll be there. You guys should have all got a calendar invite already. So please respond to the calendar invite and save the date. And we're looking forward to that retreat with all of you. And then any other new business that board members want to bring up for our next meeting? Okay. Seeing no hands up, we're actually going to end even earlier than I thought. Oh my God. You guys okay with that? You gain a few minutes of your day. Yeah. Okay. So could I have a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
Everybody, so Suzanne and Bart, or Suzanne and Linda? I don't know. Suzanne and Bart? Okay.
I'm sorry, who did you say?
Suzanne, everybody was at the same time. So Suzanne, Buck, and Bart.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
And don't you need a vote on that, Floor? I think you
Oh
had a
yeah, all those
motion.
in favor, please
Okay.
signify by saying goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, bye. Okay. Bye, Cara. Bye.